Priya Sehgal. That's our evening today.
You read the book, you'll see that it's so insightful that I'm sure all of you will take something out of it. Once this conversation is over, I hope you pick up a copy of the book.
Call upon the book to be unraveled. I welcome you all for the launch of Contender the second time over. And we would like to welcome the panel on stage. Dr. Abhishek Manu Singhvi, eminent jurist and India's top-ranking Supreme Court senior counsel. He's also a four-term Rajya Sabha MP, a member of the Congress Working Committee, the party's senior-most national spokesperson and author. Mr. Pawan Verma, diplomat, author, and a former member of parliament. Mr. Ram Madhav, president of the India Foundation, a right-wing think tank, a member of the RSS, national executive, and an author. Priya Sehgal, that's our evening today. Editorial director, NewsX, and more important in today's context, the author of Contenders. I will now call upon Mr. Ghosh, executive editor, Simon & Schuster, to introduce the author and tell us a bit about the book.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, first of all, for being here. And thank you to all the eminent panelists on the stage. None of them need any introduction, so I leave that to Priya when she's in conversation with them. Thank you for taking the time out and being here. To tell you a little bit about the book, without taking too much of your time, it started here, right here at the IIC, a few months back when we met Priya for a cup of coffee and proposed that we should do, she had written a book for us in 2019, which was on the same subject of who will lead India tomorrow, as you'll see the subtitle of the book says. And we wanted an updated version of that since we are again, looking at another round of elections around the corner. And the first thought that she had was of sheer panic, but we worked around it, we hounded her, and I have to admit that this is probably the fastest any author has written a book for us. But when you read the book, you'll see that it's so insightful that I'm sure all of you will take something out of it. Once this conversation is over, I hope you pick up a copy of the book. And I'm sure there'll be something new in it for each one of you. It's anecdotal, it's something that can start conversations. So without taking any more of your time, I want Priya to take over. And thank you, Priya, once again, for doing this for us. Thank you.
Yeah, I will now call upon the book to be unraveled. So Priya, kindly take over the mic and the unraveling as well as the launching.
Not to give a speech, but I do want to just thank everyone, all of you for coming here today. My esteemed panel, they're all people who have a ringside view of what is happening in the world of politics today. So I hope we can get them to share some of their nuggets. But thank you for taking the time off and coming here. And also all of you, you battled traffic from Noida, Gurgaon, everywhere. It's a room full, and I'm really happy that all of you could make it. I see people from all parts of my life here. My school friend, the feisty Vellums, is here. And I think Mrs. Sekri is here too, my English teacher, I think, who sometimes gave me an A+ in my studies. And yes, and the Doon School, where there is Vellums, the Doon School is there. I can see some of my brother's friends paying back all the kebabs they had. So good you had to come here. And Stephens, well, I must tell you, they were all given no option. All those in Delhi were told they had to come, otherwise I would be checking their passport. And even those from Cooler Talk have made it the alumni. So thank you, all of you, for being here. Work, of course, Kartikeya Sharma, founder of NewsX, and now a Rajya Sabha MP. You've crossed over to the dark side, Kartik. But Thank you, colleagues from all walks of life are here, from work, from friends, from family. Thank you all for being here. So now we're going to start the conversation. We're going to start by distinguishing the pretenders from the contenders. And I think I have the right panel with me for doing that. Dr. Singhvi, I'll begin with you first, since you are also someone who's writes a lot of columns. You're an observer of politics. In this book, I've made a short list of sorts. So, just taking we've kept it for politicians under 55. The idea of the book is to take a look at Gen Next in the age of Modi. Uh, at any other time, I think Rahul Gandhi would have had it easier. He may have been a prime ministerial contender, but today there is every text has a context. So Rahul is, I think, trapped in that. But in your mind, can you list 3 or 4 of them who you feel can make it to the grade of prime minister?
It's always invidious to ask that kind of selection. But I'll nevertheless answer it as frankly as I can. Before that, let me start by congratulating a thinking journalist, a writing journalist, a biographical writing journalist, and a book-length writing journalist. Sometimes some people think these words are oxymorons. And she's done it in record time, and I think broadly she's got it right. I just saw the subheadings in the book. They are so remarkably accurate in that one-line tag. She's got it broadly right on the inclusions, no major wrongful exclusions. There are 1 or 2 exceptions, but otherwise, and the 55 versus 50 age line is not quite, not wrong in the Indian context. She could have had it 50, she's taken a line of 55. Now, about this question, first and foremost, you have to decide what is it that makes all of these names, these various photographs here, contenders. My own thinking on a generalization basis is that it should be somebody with a pan-India, broadly inclusive image, a persona which is not confined to regional, narrower considerations. In the perception of the people at least, somebody with a constant connect in the people's mind, not out of the people's mind for too long. Milind Devra, for example, in that list, very, very talented, but he dropped out of the public sphere for a while, more than 2 or 3 years. Now, having said that, as I said, I wouldn't really like to choose. All of them are entitled, all of them are ambitious, anyone may become. But if you were to force me to choose, I would put RG, Rahul Gandhi, Yogi, Arvind Kejriwal, and Priyanka Gandhi. I would have added Scindia, and everybody in this room knows my relationship with Aditya Scindia and his father. Veer is not here, he would tell you about it. He wrote a biography on that also. I'm not putting him there because I believe that the BJP wants one of their own there. Their definition of one of their own is a little different. So he's not quite always one of their own. So having excluded him, I would put RG, Yogi, AK, Kejriwal, and Priyanka Gandhi. Now, this is an arbitrary choice. Let's take Rahul Gandhi. I agree with you entirely in your book that there is a perception that he's not hungry for power. But I think he's a much misunderstood man. He's a person who has had an alternative vision, an alternative thinking. And perhaps he started that alternative vision and thinking before his time, before the time was right. For example, he talked about, intra-party elections long, long ago, when it was not fashionable to do so. He talked about having internal elections, new faces, changing the guard. So I do believe it was a mistake that he didn't join the governments of 2 UPAs for 10 years. But having said that, his persistence, his stamina, an extremely clean image, contrary to whatever you might be told, and a lot of idealism. Not necessarily good in Indian politics. Sometimes it makes him bite off more than he can chew. But I put him there for these reasons. Yogi, age is on his side. Certainly, yes. He is, and a generally non-corrupt image. I think there are 2 issues there, and of course we have Mr. Ram Madhav here. One, the Rambo image is a double-edged sword. So the Rambo cuts both ways. The second is clearly a non-inclusive image. Call it exclusivity que minorities, call it exclusivity que groups. I think that is where this is the plus and minus balance sheet of Mr. Yogi, whom I put in the list of four. Arvind Kejriwal, and not because I'm representing him at all, has great talent. Great talent. I believe that in terms of pure communication abilities and immediate, instant, instinctive connect with the people, there are very few who can match his talent. And he has this ability to simplify the most complex of ideas in terms of connectivity with the people. He again has age on his side. And as I told Priya on the telephone in a lighter vein, he must have done something right if at one time both the BJP and the Congress were gunning for him and even wanting to perhaps join hands to gun for him. Lastly, a highly underestimated name, Priyanka Gandhi. There are very few persons who have that natural charisma and a natural leadership quality. And instinctive, the word Priya uses, is very, very accurate for her. She's an instinctive connector with people. Uh, I call her a natural leader. She also has a natural ability to take charge. I remember I was in the same room shortly after Madhurav Sindhya's untimely death, and she and Sonia ji entered together. And about 5 minutes later, Modi ji and Jetli came, or 10 minutes later. She took charge of the whole devastated scene. It was, of course, a very sad moment, a tragic moment. So she has very special qualities. It's a different matter if when she decides to take a full plunge or a half plunge, but I would certainly put her right up there. That's a candid answer to a difficult question.
Well, thank you, Dr. Singhvi, for taking the plunge and at least coming up with a sort of a list. I'll ask Pawan first because since we all measuring ourselves against the benchmark of Modi, in this list of names, Pawan, do you see anyone with potential?
You know, Priya, now, since for the moment I'm not part of any political party, I don't have to defend the indefensible. So I can be a little more objective. First of all, I am quite surprised by some exclusions. You haven't put Tejasvi Yadav's son, Akhilesh Yadav's son, uh, Ra- Rahul Gandhi has not married. We'll have to wait for some time. So, these dynastic.
I have Prem Kumar Dhumal's son.
Well, that's. But the BJP has no dynasties, Ram Madhavji. But anyway, the point is this that there are some exclusions. Secondly, I think Mr. Ram Madhav would be very annoyed with this book because he's not included. Uh, Yogi Aditya.
He was included, but he's past age 55. That is the only criteria by which he is.
Yogi Adityanath is there, but I mean, I wonder what Mr. Amit Shah thinks, what Mr. Rajnath Singh, but they are all above that age. But this is only opening remarks. You see, the thing is this: you have taken a list of people who are prominent in the public sphere, but to conflate it with their ability to assume the role of leadership as a contender on a pan India basis is an entirely different question because it requires a different approach, a different tenacity, a different determination, and a different level of dedication and sacrifice. I am reminded, if you will allow, of a line of Rahat Andori. सूरज को गाली देने की फैशन है, सूरज को गाली देने का फैशन है, चुनाव के खातिर पेड़ लगाना पड़ता है. फल खाना तो सब कोई चाहते हैं, पर बेटा पेड़ लगाना पड़ता है. The point I'm really making is that the leaders, and they're all people I mostly know, They all have talent, they have potential. Can that talent and potential catapult them into a state of being a contender for power? Is what I question. Uh, and that is what I want to, if you give me another 2 minutes, slightly elaborate upon. First of all, many of them are more entitled than they deserve. By which I mean that, with due apologies to my very good friend Manu Bhai, I mean, how much uh, optimism can any Congress person have to believe that Rahul Gandhi can deliver? It requires, it requires, it beggars the imagination. I mean, we have the Lok Sabha polls, and he should be the commander at headquarters. He's on a Bharat Jodo Yatra. And you know, unless it's fantasy, you cannot build a first floor of a building without a foundation. Now, here is a party for which initially I have great respect, because I'm going to ruffle a few feathers, but in private they will all agree with me. Uh, you see, unless there is a structure, the Congress party's idea as originally conceived is still relevant. The Congress party's leadership and the party at present is unable to carry that idea forward in electorally effective terms. And this has been demonstrated once, twice, thrice, and I don't know how many more chances the party will give him. So I rule out Rahul Gandhi completely. As far as Priyanka Gandhi is concerned, I have great respect for her. I also know her, but she's totally untested. I mean, I don't know of any party where merely because you're the daughter of the former president of the party, you become one of the top post holders in the Congress without having won a single election, and to play a role which is so decisive and important at the very apex of the organization. So she's untested. Now, the other problem with some of the other contenders is that, they are highly localized. I mean, let's take Jayant Chaudhary. He was a he's a beneficiary of a very important legacy of the farmers of Chaudhary Charan Singh. But you see, he's got restricted to the Western UP belt, a couple of seats. He's young, but he doesn't have the tenacity to continue to expand his base. It is something that Mayawati did. The real revolutionary was Kashiram, who actually thought that a pan India movement on the basis of the rights of Dalits could be conceived of. And in numerical terms, it does. But his legacy was betrayed by by Mayawati. And today we have a situation where Jain Chaudhary is also reduced to that. So the other problem is that lack of resolve. A very dear friend of mine, for whom I have great respect, Sachin Pilot, is there in the book. Now, he has been uh, sort of strung along by the Congress party and the family at its head for so long. And I think it's been unfair to him. But he was on the edge of taking a leave. By the way, in Rajasthan, our survey shows that on a personal basis, he enjoys a popularity of 30%.
Tell that to Ashok Gehlot.
Of course, he knows that. But for whatever reason, he has been denied that. He actually wanted then to move ahead on his own, as you are aware. And but one to give credit, the Gandhi family is not where it is without knowing how to handle slightly recalcitrant leaders. So to continue, give them hope and to prevent them from revolting. But so many have. Now, another person, I'll just finish here to just give you an idea. You see, Jyotiraditya Scindia, again, a very dynamic leader. But the temptation to make a quick deal rather than a long term goal has put him in a situation where he's in a setup where there is a glass ceiling. Unless you come, Ram Madhavji, please correct me if I'm wrong. I think Nirmala Sitaraman is the only one who's the miracle of politics in the BJP, having not come from the RSS. And in the Congress, sir, the other miracle of politics is a very good friend of mine called Rajiv Shukla, who has never won an election, but he's always there uh, as somebody important. So, Jyotiraditya Scindia has hit a glass ceiling. Whereas if he had persisted where he was, or done what he could to reform the Congress party, which is, of course, next to an impossible task. So, he would have probably risen. You know, he had the age, he had the charisma, he had the backing, he had the lineage, he had the grassroots connect. So he hasn't done it. So, lastly, I want to end these preliminary remarks by saying that if you are to be a contender, you have to be a charismatic face, you have to have a vision, you have to be able to sacrifice. The BJP had that tenacity when it was reduced to 2 seats in parliament, but you will see the minimum amount of hemorrhaging from the party in spite of many offers by the ruling parties. They stayed where they were and they fought and they fought and they fought, and today, fortunately or unfortunately, they are where they are. The point I'm making is that you have to have a face, a leadership, a vision, a narrative, an organization, and a pan India network, and the ability for old fashioned street politics. Unless you have that, you will remain prominent in the news, but you are not a contender.
Okay, and this is only the preliminary remarks, so I don't know what his next set of remarks is going to be. But Ram Madhavji, basically, we call the Congress decade when Rahul Gandhi refused to engage the lost decade. For 10 years of UPA, he stayed out of power, so a second rung could not be built. You know, whether it was Scindia, Pilot, they all had to be cut out of power. Are the Modi years also the lost decade? Because nobody can aspire. The second rung is also, coming up, but they hit that proverbial glass ceiling.
Firstly, let me congratulate you for, revising the book that you published in 2019. My best wishes to you for another revision in 2029, which you will obviously do. Then I have two suggestions for 2029 when you revise it. Number one, please change the title from Contenders to Rising Leaders or something like that.
Not pretenders.
Predators is not fair because they are all leaders in their own right. Uh, my second suggestion would be to follow up on what Mr. Pawan Verma said. Probably pick up people in the age group of 35-40. That will be probably a better choice because Prime Minister Modi ji has announced that 2047 is his target. So don't don't try to be in a hurry to find contenders. When there is no vacancy, how can you find contenders? But more importantly, I have a much more serious point to make in the sense that had you written something like that in 2003, would you have included Manmohan Singh in that list? Had you written something like this in 2012, would you have included Modi in this list? Probably Modi would have found his name in 10 or 15 names you included. Take the names of the chief ministers. Would you have ever anticipated their names to be the chief ministers of those given states? In that, I would like to humbly mention to our friends that our men, not our men. I don't think BJP has any such kind of distinction between the leaders who are in the party. I handled India's Northeast for 6-7 years when I was the General Secretary of the party. You see, all the BJP's chief ministers have come from Congress. So there is no such distinction. Nobody really thinks that he's an outsider, he should not become. That doesn't mean anything that somebody who came can become or cannot become. That's not the issue. Who becomes is something very difficult to predict in the Indian scenario. I mean, I only went back to 2003, but I was told that when Mr. Indra Kumar Gujral became the prime minister, he was woken up at 1 o'clock in the night and told that tomorrow morning you have to take the oath as prime minister. He said, "Are you joking?" But he became the prime minister next day. So, with
Half
all
your
the
chief
list and all
ministers,
that,
half your BJP chief ministers also got the same shock.
हो सकता है. So that is precisely the reason why you should not name it as contenders. So there are many more people. As far as BJP is concerned, some names have been taken up. Have been taken like Yogi ji, Amit Shah ji, etc. I think they are of course very senior leaders with huge influence, and BJP has several such good leaders in the party. And today, this discussion about whether they will become contenders for the top post becomes a little premature. It's like asking, when will your father die? I have a leader who is delivering. We have a leader who is the most popular leader in the country. This is not the time to discuss about who are the contenders and all that. In any case, as I said, that seat is not vacant for many more years to come, I think. But yes, I would only say that the names that you have taken up are all very important names. They are generally looked up to by people in sometimes in the states, but also they have a national appeal in a limited sense, like Omar Abdullah. All these people have some appeal across, outside their states also. Good names. They are all good leaders.
So then, should we not have to now for the next 15 years? I think it's decided. So then, Dr. Singhvi.
I was just thinking, first of all, when I saw the stage, I thought it's you versus us. Mr. Madhav and you of course would have been a devil's advocate supporting Mr. Madhav. Then I realized I have a mole in my left. I didn't quite get it. Now, he of course has the advantage of getting all the claps and the laughter because he's not affiliated to a party. I am candid to a point, but not beyond limits. Now, but like a very clever set of lawyers, both my non-lawyer friends have outdone lawyers today. I'll tell you why. You trapped me with a question by saying, give me 3 or 4 names out of your list. I gave an honest, straightforward answer. Very difficult, but candid answer to the best of my ability. I picked 4. Both my friends have named nobody. Number 1. Number 2, they have therefore impliedly said that all your 12, 15 are not going to be prime ministers ever. Number 3, they should then, especially my friend Mr. Verma, should have named a 13th or a 14th fellow. No name. Of course, I can understand Mr. Madhav's compulsions. He cannot name anybody except numero uno. But the question is, your question has to be answered, and not like a clever lawyer, the question itself can't be rephrased. That you said, who amongst these? Now, if you have a lot, as Churchill said, democracy is the worst form of governance, but it is the best available one. So you have now given a pool. I think the exclusions I've done in selecting 4 are valid exclusions. They're all very talented, but they don't have an all-India persona. They do not have an all-India permanent connect with the minds. He mentioned one name, Western UP. It is also, I think, a drawback and a tragedy of our system that we don't immediately think of somebody from the South. For example, if Stalin had been a little younger, I know he's more than 55, but had he been a little younger, he would not have figured in your list. This is one of our disconnects. Or maybe, the chief minister example is not good, Madhavji, because we're talking of prime minister. You picked up a lot of Congress chief ministers, but the glass ceiling hits when you talk of prime minister. And that's the truth. But the point I'm making is that you have to have in the next 10, 20, 30 years, at least 1 or 2 of these names. Because beyond these names, nobody has suggested another name. And in that, you can have a wish list. Now, I would like to know if there is a 5th and a 6th name which is better in your list than the 4 names I've given. Amit Shah is not in your list, by the way.
Which he has pointed out.
comment about my compulsion. I can understand his compulsion. Two names he took were both were Gandhis.
But he also took Kejriwal's
Can you
name.
tell? No, in Congress I said. In Congress only Gandhis can become the Prime Minister. That's his compulsion.
But he took Yogi's name also, to be fair to
I
him.
was wondering if you can take Yogi's name at all.
Actually, I said not Yogi alone. I said even he took up Amit Shah's name, and also he said there are several others. But it's a premature discussion because right now, of course, as I said, there is no such scope at all. Number two, no question of anybody from your party in any case. I didn't want to go to that level, but I only said that there are people in BJP.
Our non-BJP people.
No, it's like this. First of all, I admire Mr. Ram Madhavji's faith till 2047. Uh, we will have one leader in the BJP towards Amrit Kal. Uh, it's a good thought, but the real problem is that politics is dynamic. And from where a leader arises when, in what circumstances, is something that is difficult to predict. So if I can't name from this list somebody else, I cannot rule out the fact that there could be. I mean, in 1971, Mrs. Gandhi, after she had defeated Pakistan and created Bangladesh with an absolute majority in parliament and was called, although you deny it now, Durga, by your leader at that time, Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, she seemed to be invincible. She had her own Amrit Kal. But in 4 years' time, she was compelled to impose the emergency. In 1984, when Rajiv Gandhi won and had the highest majority ever in parliament, even more than his mother and grandfather, he seemed quite invincible. In fact, the opposition was not only decimated, it was embarrassingly decimated. I mean, BJP, and that's where I give your party the credit that it had the resolve and the ideological commitment to continue the battle. But it was reduced to 2 seats. And who could have predicted that by 1989, Rajiv Gandhi would be struggling to survive and then lose an election? So, in 1975, nobody thought that a rather unwell man, far above the age of 55, living in retirement, in an ashram, in Kadam Kuan, in Patna, would suddenly wake up and become the catalyst around which a whole galaxy of young leaders gathered Jayaprakash Narayan. So I am saying that I admire your faith, your devotion, your sense of loyalty, and your awareness of the consequences if these are not expressed. But I think that even the BJP should understand a very simple line of Mirza Ghalib. Ghalib khasta ke bagair kaun se kaam band hai? Roiye zar zar kya kijiye hai hai kyon? Nobody is indispensable in politics. And also remember a line which I like to quote again of Ghalib. Har bulandi ke nasibo mein hai pasti ek din. Every pinnacle has the seeds of its own decline in its very genetic makeup. So, we wish Mr. Modi well and wish him a long life. But leadership in this country, I have great faith, may come from those beyond this list who are tired of the kind of politics we are playing, the kind of amorality, the kind of barren ideological landscape we have. And the fact of the matter is that it is this democracy that will produce it right under your eyes.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with you. That democratic process should throw up leaders, not you, me, and Mr. Singhvi sitting here and deciding who should be the next leader. At least that much humility we should have. That's what I said in the beginning. When I said that this democracy threw up so many leaders which we never anticipated that they would become prime minister, they would become chief ministers. When you ridicule this whole imagination about 2047, etc., please remember, this country was ruled for 27 continuous years by Congress from 50 to 77. Indira Gandhi had committed the blunder of imposing emergency in 1975. Had she not done that, as you rightly said, she was at the pinnacle of her popularity and glory. I mean, history has no ifs and buts, I know. But who would have anticipated that a Janata Party would come to power in 1974, 1973? Had anybody anticipated it? So I agree that a party could rule for 27 years. Give at least 27 years to BJP. Not necessarily to Modi. That will take us to 1941.
That will be democratically decided.
Exactly. Right now, so when it comes to that, you say democratically decided, but you are ready to roll out names from all parties. I say you name 10 people, there are 20 people, there can be people from the audience. Who knows? Somebody from the audience.
There's a prime minister sitting there.
Who knows? But India's democracy has that strength, and who has seen the future? I mean, great leaders, people like Indira Gandhi, as you rightly mentioned, who thought we will never lose. We used to think that in 2004, BJP would certainly come back. It never came back. I mean, anything can happen in Indian democracy.
So on that note, can we discuss another person who we haven't discussed, which I think is, there's always the disruptor, the X factor, which is Arvind Kejriwal, that factor, a name that you took. He is someone, from the way I observed him also, he is the only 24/7 politician. He is the only non-dynast in that sense, who's also willing to put in what it takes. He's matching Modi for headline. He has the same gumption. What he doesn't have is a party or a pan-India organization, which will the opposition rally behind him. He certainly has become the face of the opposition, at least for now, after the rest.
Well, as I've said, he's a very talented person, ambitious, hardworking, and has a remarkable connect. And if you observe him closely, his connect extends to be able to simplifying a concept which is complex and connecting with the people. I think his worst enemies give him that. Now, it's true he doesn't have an organization, but he's expanding. I mean, just consider one thing, or two things. If as powerful an organization as the BJP has spent the last year or so with the maximum focus and energies, more than any other party in India, on the Kejriwal AAP party, both in Delhi, in Punjab and elsewhere. As I said, he must be doing something right. It's as simple as that. Number one. Number two, we had 15 years of Sheila Dikshit in Delhi. She faced a central government of the Congress, she faced a central government of the BJP, including Sushma Swaraj and very briefly Madanlal Khurana. Have you ever, put your hand on your heart and ask that question, have you ever seen the kind of disruptive behavior on the same constitutional plane between the central government and the state government of Delhi or the NCT? Ever. Irrespective of political color, the constitution hasn't changed. Indeed, Kejriwal has 2 judgments in his favor after that on the interpretation of the constitution. So there must be, again, either some fear or some apprehension or some sense of competition. Otherwise, no central government will behave like this for a state government with a 67-3 figure. Thirdly, you see today also, and I mean, it's a sub judice matter, so it's not one person. You have the top 4 people of that party and many more, top 4 behind and many more on the scanner. Which other party has suffered that? So as I said, if there is a threat perception of that degree, there must be something there. It's a question you have to ask yourself. Now, what happens in the future, in the womb of the future, nobody knows. I'm not talking legality. I'm appearing in all those cases. That doesn't matter. I'm sufficiently objective not to be clouded by that. And I'm not talking law. I'm not talking, merits. I'm just saying that as the political question you asked, it is certainly something which should make you sit up and think.
Mr. Singhvi is Kejriwal's lawyer. Obviously, he will say good things about him. my simple point is, Mr. Kejriwal is a very overrated politician. He is a darling of sections of media because Rahul Gandhi is not working. Probably this guy will work. That is the whole hope. With that hope, you hype him. However much you hype him, you can only talk about Delhi and Punjab. Everywhere else, that party came such a cropper. No other state. But you still say that he is the challenge to Modi? Where is that question coming? I mean, we have actually given up on your own leaders now. You think that Kejriwal will challenge him? No Congress leader has now that ability to challenge. He will challenge. Where are we heading? He is very overrated. He had his constituency. He has got his own support base in Delhi. Fair enough. There are such leaders in many states. There was this mention about Mr. Stalin. Stalin had his base in Tamil Nadu. To the extent that they are strong regional leaders, fine. But to create an impression that, he is above even your own party leaders, he will tomorrow go and challenge this government. No, that's not going to happen. I don't think that's a very real assessment. Assess him correctly. He is a strong leader in Delhi, no doubt. We faced him twice. We could not defeat him twice. We will see the third election when it comes in 2027. That's how he should go, but not a contender for that top post.
There's another election before that, the Delhi election.
I just want to say that one factor you have ignored in this is that if there was to be any real contender, he would be fighting not only the BJP, he would be fighting all the other agencies combined that are today parts of the BJP apparatus. And that's the truth. I mean, sorry, I say this, please don't take it it's an objective discussion. And these days I can be objective. 33% of Mr. Modi's cabinet, as per their own declaration, at the time of their nomination for elections, have cases of starting with cheating, starting with dacoity, and attempt to murder. Some of them have 21 FIRs, of which half are related to attempt to murder. You don't have a single inquiry by any agency against them. Whereas, as against in the opposition, even if a contender were to emerge, I'm not such a mole, even if your contender were to emerge, the sheer insurmountable challenges of government in power which has blurred the line between rectitude and vendetta is a very serious issue today. There are leaders who join the BJP, and Ram Vadadji, please don't attempt to deny it. I mean, against whom you've carried on crusades of corruption. They join the BJP, and it's a cliche now to talk of a washing machine. It's a laundry factory. I mean, everybody, the cases are dropped. My good friend, somebody with whom I had lunch on a one-to-one basis 2 days before he moved to the BJP, Praful Patel. He joins your side. Case is closed. So I'm just saying these are huge problems for any contender to contend with. Because today, I'm sorry, and Mr. Singhvi can elaborate on this, thanks to certain laws, especially the UAPA and the PMLA and Section 45 of the PMLA, the process has become the punishment.
Well, there's always Dr. Singhvi there if anybody gets arrested.
I'm just adding a couple of points since Pawan is finally redeeming himself. 2 or 3 interesting points. One, it's not just the narrowness of what we are discussing that isko pakad liya, kal isko chhod diya. The weaponization of these laws bodes ill, very seriously ill for India. We have in this country the difference between India and Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, every one of our neighbors, is that incoming and outgoing regimes don't gun for each other. It started in one southern state by 2 honchos. It then spread to the east. It then went to the Battle of the Sardars in the north. And then it went to the east briefly, left and the new display. Barring these 3, even in states, and certainly not in the center, did you have vendetta politics. You are inaugurating a very negative era of Indian democracy. Sometime you will go. Imagine the successor. Howsoever restrained and mature he is, imagine his reaction. And it will unleash a never ending cycle, which is terrible for democracy. And we haven't had it for 75 years, barring the exceptions I've given you. Number two, uh, the BJP is right when they trot out statistics to confuse you. Out of 100 cases, only about 10% are about political figures on the PMLA. But you don't ask the second question. Of those 10, 9 or 9.5 or 9.9% involve opposition leaders. The rest are non-political, they are businessmen or others. But of every case touching politics, 99% or 98% are only opposition leaders. So the laundry factory is not an imagination. And third, in the recent past near the elections, the number of crossovers and clean chits followed by Rajya Sabha memberships or Rajya Sabha memberships followed by clean chits, it has never happened in Indian politics. In fact, I compliment and admire the brazenness which is done. It's amazing.
Not
And I
even
think it's
Indira
very bad
Gandhi's
for
time.
democracy.
Not even in Indira Gandhi's time.
Not this, Indira, let's accept it. What does my friend, not he, but his colleagues say? There's an emergency. I accept emergency as an aberration. I've written a PhD on emergency. My PhD is on emergency powers, a legal analysis. Let's accept it as an aberration. It is not something which is, now, if it's an aberration, it was a constitutional aberration, constitutionally regulated, constitutionally circumscribed. Today, where is the circumscribing? Where is the regulation? It is much more invidious. Just because the Korea calls itself the Democratic Republic of North Korea, does it become democratic? So you need to be careful about these, quickies. Oh, yes, of course, Mrs. Gandhi must have done some excesses. A lot of people under her must have done some excesses. So let's accept it. Does that give you a license to having 10 years of a growing sense of intolerance, narrowness, exclusivity, fear factor? Put your hand on your heart and say, many of you are bureaucrats, you have bureaucratic friends, many of you have judicial connections. Has there been the degree of fear in India ever, which is there today? Never. And if you don't say it, you are living, you have to smell the coffee then.
No, firstly, most of the laws and these institutions were created by a government, not by the BJP government. PMLA and UAPA were created earlier. One. Secondly,
The PMLA was brought in by Mr. Chidambaram. But you must know that all the amendments which we are talking about now, and I have some knowledge of this, are 2016, 2018, and 2019 amendments. 90% of that is that. Please check it out.
And also brought in as money bills so that they don't have to go to the Rajya Sabha.
so, exactly. So,
That's the draconian part of it.
yes.
The amendments.
Sir, secondly,
Okay.
secondly, when we were in the opposition, we used to call CBI as the Congress Bureau of Investigation. We had our own complaints about that organization. I know how a very false case of Hindu terror has been foisted on us, on some of our people. It was a totally baseless case just to create, a religious equivalent of the jihadi Islamist terror that was spreading in the country. You created a bogey of Hindu terror using your own agencies those days. I directly handled those agencies. Those officers used to tell us that yes, we are not able to really find any evidence, but we have to continue this investigation. You did all these things. This was, I'm talking about 2006 to 2010, 11, 12. So misusing a particular, then we went to the judiciary. We got whatever relief we have to get from the judiciary. What can I do if you can't get a bail for Arvind Kejriwal from the judiciary? Is it my mistake? That means the case is solid. That means the allegations are serious. Yes, if there are any any wrongdoings on the side of the agencies, have faith in judiciary, or say that judiciary is also, you can't trust this judiciary also. Say that publicly. You don't believe in any institution, you don't believe in any agency, okay, you don't have to believe in the government because it is from another party, by the another party. But if you don't believe in even judiciary and say that no, it's all draconian, only government is running everything. No, India is not North Korea. Please don't compare. We are much better, much more democratic, much more open society with an independent, functional judiciary. Have faith in that. Relief will come. It took 6 years for us to get out of that bogus, very insidious type of propaganda of Hindu terror. It took us a very long time.
Okay. Last round before we moving away from Arvind Kejriwal and PMLA, the messaging. If the opposition doesn't have a face, Dr. Singhvi, at least you should have a good message that you've come up with a good manifesto.
There's no doubt. I mean, messaging, narrative, infrastructure, cadre at the bottom, these are all very important down to the booth level. Nobody's saying that you just put a leader on a name and you go and win elections.
But
I have
consistent
also no
messaging.
hesitation in saying that they have a remarkable mascot in Mr. Modi. His whole persona is more larger than life. There's no doubt about it. But to your question, in terms of content and message, I don't think we have made any big blunders. We have got fairly comprehensive messaging. The problem is of various other factors. There is, of course, a problem of having a very strong leader in Mr. Modi. He has caught the imagination of the public of India. There is equally the problem of funds. You have to go down to the level and see the difference in funds. Elections in India, you like it or not, depend on funds. The ratio is all the parties in India put together multiplied by 3, and it is well below the BJP total. And that is only the declared one. So I think we have a number of factors. So messaging is of course there. I think we worked hard on the manifesto. We may disagree, but to just call it a Muslim League manifesto is, I leave it to you to judge. You have to read parts of it. You know, if you talk of inclusiveness, if you talk of certain left of center views, it doesn't become a Muslim League manifesto, nor does it become a CPM manifesto. So I think that is part of Mr. Modi's very strong style of messaging. It doesn't make it the truth. And all that we are talking about, of course, can be dealt with by Mr. Modi in one sentence which Mr. Madhav has not said. This is all Lutyens Delhi's nonsense. To that there is no answer. If rationality is bad, then Lutyens Delhi is also bad.
No, this Khan Market gang is very bad. I'll tell you why. Because people like us who are often put in that bracket, Mr. Madhav is right, and frankly, the Congress party cannot deny it. There was misuse of agencies in the past also. But many of us did not realize that we were wrong in our realization that the BJP is a party with a difference. And today, that Khan Market gang is wondering if they are all the same. Anyway, that's a part. But the real point I want to end on is that it's not only about contenders from outside. I think that any contender from within the BJP also must tread very warily. Because as Mr. Ram Madhav said, there is absolutely no vacancy till 2047. So, the moment somebody emerges or is likely to emerge, sometimes action can be very quick. Mr. Madhav himself is aware of it. So, the point I'm making is that there is, for the first time in my life, and I was very close to Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, and I have great respect for him, and I have also respect of certain aspects of the RSS. I do not demonize Veer Savarkar. There are aspects which you have to understand, and we have had discussions on it. But today, I have never ever seen a national political party so publicly marginalized by its own leader by failing to ever mention it. Everything is one person's guarantee. The party doesn't figure, sir. And it's happened for the first time in the BJP, which was always a collegial party.
I may not fully agree with that analysis of yours about the party and the leadership. I would probably end by saying, in a slightly broader and larger context, we have entered a totally different era in our lives. It's a very technologically driven era. Democratic processes have to undergo certain change. You can't stick to your conventional political practices and jump up and down that we are not getting space and all that. This is the era of technology. This is the era of new modes of communication. You have to be, you have to be using all those things. You have to be appealing to the larger sections of the society. That is where the leadership of BJP has great advantage over other parties. While you are stuck in your caste politics, you are stuck in your family politics, BJP has gone far, far ahead. It is not just leadership alone. Leadership is important for BJP. But may I tell you that in this country we have about 1 million plus polling stations. The BJP has got its units in 850,000 polling stations. Why are you not taking it into account? Why do you think it's only because of Modi? No, Modi is important. And we have entered in an era in the whole world, not just in India, please remember, of dominant democracy, dominant leadership, I'm not saying. Dominant democracy in the sense that you have to have a dominant idea and you have to have a dominant leadership. Then you have to have that kind of following you have to create. Why these much hated right-wing parties are coming back to power in country after country in Europe? Because today's politics is about a dominant idea, a dominant leadership, and a dominant way of reaching the people. That is the new politics today. If you are not accustomed to that politics, don't complain Modi ji. Don't complain about Modi ji. Or don't complain about BJP. BJP is well versed about the new politics of the day. It is putting it in action. That is why the results are coming. Modi ji's leadership is paramount, but the party's organizational structure and the idea, the cultural idea that touches the minds and hearts of millions and millions of Indians is also equally important. That forces you to do japa in public rallies. That forces you to show your Genevo. Please remember that idea. Don't dismiss that idea. It's a combination, new politics.
Thank you all for this conversation. In fact, actually, what are we arguing about? Because you know what they say, okay, the Congress Nehru has now become Congress Modi. They all have joined you anyway. But on that note, I thank my panelists for a very feisty debate and my audience. I mean, I see all of you from Roundtable, Cover Story, We Women Want. Thank you all for coming and for being a part of my day. Thank you so much and a very happy new year. Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.